India's neighborhood is seeing some tension. Maldives, the small island nation down south near the equator, along India's western coast, is having some issues with India, or more specifically, the new dispensation that has come to power in the month of November last year, headed by President Mohammad Muizzu, has some problems with India, because of which they have been escalating. One of the very first decisions of the Muizzu government was to stop helicopter and air ambulance services, rescue services provided by India. That was a humanitarian assistance being given by India, which Mohammad Muizzu and those with him in power did not like, for whatever reasons. Subsequently, we have seen escalation in provocations from the Maldivian side, typically as it happens with India following its neighborhood first policy. Whenever there is a change of government in any of its neighboring countries, they visit New Delhi as their first port of call, first foreign trip abroad. But in the case of President Mohammad Muizzu, he went to Turkey first, then he went to UAE, and now he has even gone to China before coming to New Delhi, if at all he decides to come. Clearly, the China card is being played, like we saw once in the case of Nepal a couple of years back, so in the case of Maldives now. We've seen that being played in Sri Lanka as well. We'll try to understand through this conversation we are going to have on what's really happening. Is it a function of the dynamics of local politics at play in Mali between the two democratic dispensations, the democratic parties? Or is it something more? Is there a foreign hand guiding, deciding on behalf of those in power in Maldives now? I have two guests already with us, and we have Prashant Pitti, co-founder of Ease My Trip. He's joining us live from Delhi. We also have Pathikrit Pine, strategic affairs, geopolitical analyst, strategic affairs expert. He's also live from Delhi. In a bit, I would be joined by Ahmed Adib. He's former vice president of Maldives, former tourism minister of Maldives. He is now in the opposition, and he has taken a very clear position that what this present government is doing vis-a-vis India is not good. Since the story came under focus after Prime Minister Modi went to Lakshadweep 5 days back, and we saw those pictures which are on air of Prime Minister soaking in the beauty of Lakshadweep, it sort of started a trend. Provocation from Maldives vis-a-vis what India already has. Now, there is a reason why this story came under focus, because almost 1/3 of Maldives' GDP depends on its interactions with India. Maldives gets maximum number of tourists from India. I beg your pardon, 1/3 of its tourism earnings, tourism revenue comes from India. So we'll try to understand whether this is just about local political dynamics, or is it about the China card, the China hand? I would be soon joined in by Ahmed Adib, but before that, let's start with Prashant Pitti and Pathikrit Pine. To Pathikrit first. Pathikrit, you see, you are a close watcher of geopolitics in our neighborhood and the extended neighborhood. What's your assessment? Is this happening because of the local political dynamics? Because the government of President Ibrahim Soleh before this was very, very pronouncedly pro-India. So as a reaction, a very anti-India or a pro-China government has come to power, and what we are seeing is very temporary, or there is something more to it?
Politics. So it's not essentially partisan politics going on. It's not exactly a partisan politics going on.
Go ahead.
What I think is actually happening is that China always does the bidding for such elements
who would do their job. Let me tell you what's the problem with Maldives. Maldives is a very fragile economy in a very ecologically vulnerable environment and in a very, very tense geopolitical region. Ideally, for a country like Maldives, they should have stayed away from all kinds of major war, face-offs going on among major powerhouses. But the problem is countries like Maldives and certain elements of them get propped up by the likes of China, who then ask them to do the work of a flanker. Whatever Maldives is doing, especially this dispensation, even if they have suspended these three ministers, please understand, I would like to tell the audience, it was started by the president of Maldives, the present president himself. And why I say that the Maldivian government, Maldivian economy is so fragile. Look at the economy of Maldives. $7 billion is its GDP, nominal GDP. It is less than 25% of the turnover of TCS for the year 2023, less than 6% of the turnover of Reliance Industries at $1.120 billion. Still, their ministers are making crass comments at the prime minister of a country which is the fifth largest economy of the world, who never mentioned a word about Maldives. He was merely promoting Lakshadweep, which was his right. And as you rightly mentioned, Abhishek, this is exactly the way the Chinese propped up KP Oli, who started making comments, who started doing things in spite of not realizing the fact that whether it is Nepal or whether it is Maldives, when it comes to, as a first respondent, it cannot be anybody else other than India because of geographical proximity. And number two, Pakistan, Sri Lanka are great examples that China will never let you out of a death trap as and when you fall in it. Ideally, a country like Maldives, irrespective of whatever politics goes on inside that country, they should have not got into this, contest going on among major powerhouses. But unfortunately, they try to bite more than what they can chew. And in today's India is not what it was 10 years back. Today, the whole concept of Atma Vishwas is so profound.
No, Pratikrit.
Of the country, people will forget everything else and they will hit you back. And this is exactly, I think, Abhishek, it would not have gone to that extent if Maldives had not wanted it. But Maldives is doing the whole thing. And unfortunately,
no, sure, absolutely. Should we even be saying that it is today's India or it was yesterday's India? Maldives is an independent sovereign country, but a small neighbor, We need not flex our muscles. We need not really bother beyond a certain point. And the fact that much of their humanitarian assistance in times of crisis comes from India, be it a coup, be it a tsunami, be it failure of the desalination plant, or even tourism revenue.